monstrosity. Boy, that flew. Well, sometimes when they're hit, they stay hit. Kieran Tierney.
Welcome to the After Extra Time podcast. I'm Stuart Kavanagh, and this is the place to be for the big news, the big games, and the big names in the world game. As usual, let me introduce my co-host. He is the author of Transatlantic Passage, How the Premier League Redefined Soccer in America, editor-in-chief at thesportsbank.net, and my good friend, Mr. Paul M. Banks. Paul, how are you going this week, mate?
Not good, Stewie. Not good. That was, I don't know what you would call that yesterday, but that wasn't a Manchester United Liverpool match.
Yeah, I just realized that you definitely want to touch on this in a future segment, so I won't step on it too much, but I think your silence was deafening when I emailed you yesterday just after the game and said, geez, that was a bit of a rough watch, mate. I take it you didn't take it well.
No, I mean, when I saw that Rangnick started Phil Jones and named Hannibal to the team and named some guy I've never heard of to the team, I was like, okay. Ronaldo obviously missed it for reasons he had to, for reasons bigger than football. But I looked at that team and I'm like, well, I know what this is going to be. But then you get there and then you're still like, good God, Paul Pogba piecing out after being quote unquote injured after just 10 minutes. Dude does not give a shit. The guy gives no fucks at all.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Pogba. I mean, even his limp seemed a little bit half-hearted as he came off. You know, I watched a lot of the reaction from the UK, the Sky Sports guys, and the general consensus is, you know, like you just alluded to, he's checked out. He's on holidays already, and he's already thinking about playing alongside Messi and Neymar next season at Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, I mean, he's had one foot out the door for a while, but now he's got both feet out the door.
All right, mate. Well, you want to talk about this in this next segment, so we won't harp on it too much. I know it must be painful for you, mate. I'm going to keep my gloating to a minimum.
And they're singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" on the back of it for Cristiano Ronaldo. Respectful class.
Let's move on to the winners and losers segment, and dealer's choice, Paul. You want to get into the loser of the week, or you want to get into your winner for the week?
No, let's keep this train wreck rolling. Let's go straight into that. I've already had United as my loser of the week. I've already had, Ole or the board or the Glazers, or I've done that as the loser of the week. I've done being a United fan as the loser of the week, United fan. But this time, I'm just going to say the rivalry itself with Liverpool is losing, because you had Liverpool at 72% possession, 14 shots to United's 5, or two on goal to 0. 9-0 in aggregate for the season. It's just such a joke. They're not even on the same. Bruno Fernandes apologized to the fans, as he should, and he said, they're not. Bruno rejected the idea that they're not checked out. He says they are still playing. I don't know if I believe that. And he says you got to play for the badge. He should also say that they should play for European qualification. I mean, they're not dead there yet. Arsenal kind of let them back in with that losing streak, but they could still catch Spurs. I don't know. My loser is just, this is a better game when the two teams are, in the same tier.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking to see that performance, and then you take in the performance over the 180 minutes of both the matches. Liverpool had some rough years, man. I know what it's like, and this is just a classic case of me giving you the sweet before the sour. But I don't think Liverpool ever put in such an insipid performance. I think there's a bunch of guys there. We touched on Pogba. The list is long. Nemanja Matic, Jesse Lingard, Anthony Martial. I know he didn't play. but he's part of this group. You mentioned in an article on the sportsbank.net, go check it out, guys, about Marcus Rashford, probably best for his career and for the club to leave. Like, there's no passion. You said about Bruno Fernandes talked about, you got to perform for the badge. It's all well and good saying that to the media after you've just been whooped by your arch rivals. How about saying it to the boys in the dressing room before the game starts, Okay, so my loser, which kind of loses a bit of sting. I'm noticing a bit of a pattern here. If things get dicey for Liverpool, I might stick them in the loser, because as soon as I put someone in the losers list, they pull out a performance, and there's no difference this week. I've got Arsenal consistently blowing their chance to finish fourth. Just 3 weeks ago, they were the favourites. Now they have little more than an outside chance. So I wrote this yesterday, and then this morning they beat Chelsea 4-2. So I think that it's made that top 4 race a little bit more interesting. I think there's an old adage that you don't win anything with youth in football, because they're inconsistent. I think that's probably going to hurt Arsenal, and I don't know if they're gonna make that top 4 spot that they seem such good chance for just a few short weeks ago. So they are my loser. I've got a dual one this week. I think it's a bit of strange form from the hierarchy of Burnley to sack Sean Dyche with only 5 or 6 games to go after 10 years in the job.
Yeah, that is a weird. I don't know why they did that. That he wasn't the problem. And Arsenal's just kind of up and down. That is so weird how it's worked out for you like that.
All right, Paul, we've had the sour. Now let's get to the sweet. Let's talk about some good stuff that's happened in football this week. Let me know who your winner is.
Yeah, I'm going with the ovation for Ronaldo at the 7-minute mark. I mean, it brought both sides of the rivalry together. It showed, that there are, things much, much bigger than football. It united Liverpool and United fans at Anfield. What a great moment. That's why they call it the beautiful game, for stuff like that. He lost his newborn son. He announced it the day before, him and his longtime girlfriend Georgina, that they had lost their newborn son. So he had to miss the game, as he should, to be with his partner and deal with that. So that was a fine moment.
Yeah, it was really moving. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that before, but it was tremendous. I think I wrote in the notes that I was going to add this to my winner, but after the pain United gave you, I thought it'd be good for you to get something good out there for everyone to talk about, and it was just a tremendous thing. And like you said, I don't think I can add on to it anymore. That is why it's called the beautiful game. Let's move on. I don't want to gloss over that, but time constraints, people. Let's move on to my winner. And I've gone for West Ham United qualifying for the Europa League semi-finals, with Barcelona being dumped out by Eintracht Frankfurt at the quarterfinal stage in incredible scenes. The Frankfurt fans took over the camp now. West Ham have a genuine chance to win the whole thing and potentially find themselves in Champions League football next season, in pot 1 too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really sweet for them. That's got to be a great story. They haven't won anything in the longest time, but they are a proud club with a good, rich history. You got to say that they're among the favorites, if not the favorite. So kudos to them. What a huge win that would be for them.
100%. Fantastic stuff for West Ham United. My ex-roommate will be ecstatic if they're in the Champions League next year. So,
welcome back to the latest episode of After Extra Time. I am Paul M. Banks, and we are very pleased to welcome our next guest. Anytime we have a week on, it's a very special week, and this is a very special guest, Gavin Good, a freelancer who writes for numerous publications, covers many different sports. You've seen him in the Chicago Tribune, you've seen him in the Champaign News Gazette, you've seen him in the Associated Press, you've seen him on social media at It's All Good. So we love the MC Hammer, or should we just say Hammer reference, because that's one of Hammer's more underrated songs. Welcome to the show, Gavin. How you doing?
I'm great, Paul and Stuey. Thanks for having me on, guys. Excited to talk some soccer, or football as people call it. I'm not too particular about which one people roll with. So
we tread the line on this podcast. It's football sometimes, it's soccer other times. So it's good. Great to have you on, Gavin.
Yeah, we kind of use them interchangeably. But tell me about being at the I guess it'd be like America's version of the FA Cup or the League Cup, where you were there at Soldier Field for that monumental upset, the third division side, Omaha Union bested the Fire.
Yep. I was there about with probably maybe 2,000 people, maybe if we're being generous. But yeah, it was a really disappointing result for Chicago. And Union Omaha, I believe, became the first ever USL 1 side to knock an MLS team out of the US Open Cup. So the Fire now get another embarrassing first that they're on the end of in a competition that they, as you said on Twitter yesterday, Paul, they always take it really seriously. So, I think some MLS clubs, some of the bigger clubs in MLS can kind of brush something like that off. But the Fire's fan base was, rightfully furious by that result. And, Ezra Hendrickson, he went with some clear squad rotation, as one does in the early round of the Open Cup, no matter how seriously you take it. But the Fire played really badly. And then, they had a disappointing round of penalties as well, with Miguel Navarro hitting the last one off about the center of the crossbar. Which sent Union Omaha into some pretty spirited celebrations that included flipping off the supporter section. So it was definitely an interesting and chaotic night, which that is one of the best things about the Open Cup, the chaos it always seems to provide.
So you said that there was a crowd of about 2,000 people or so, and it was at Soldier Field. Was there many traveling supporters or?
No, there weren't a ton. There were definitely a few. I did see that Union Omaha, back in Omaha, there was a pretty packed bar of Union Omaha fans who are going pretty crazy and were excited just from looking at their Twitter account. I actually don't know. I didn't really know any of their players. A lot of young guys, but they showed up ready to roll. And, they made the Fire look pretty foolish. Every time the Fire took the lead twice, both on PKs from Rafael Chichos. And, each time Union Omaha had a response. Their last goal was from this guy, Tucci. He scored in the 122nd minute. As, the Fire's, they started, reserves in their back line besides Chichos. And, they were just kind of late getting on a pretty solid pass. And Richie, their backup goalkeeper, he got beat, And you got to say, you got to give it to Union Omaha, right? If they played balls to the wall last night, and the Fire, they definitely had control of the game. They outshot them only by one shot, actually. And they both put 6 shots on target. So, I think in the end, the margin for error was pretty slim for Chicago, and it came back to bite them.
Yeah, I mean, scoring has obviously been a major issue in the MLS. This is like a team that, I don't know, maybe Jose Mourinho or Louis van Gaal would love it because of all the goalless draws. But although, it hasn't been the most exciting brand of football or soccer this season, very massive atmosphere, a lot of excitement on Saturday. So you were there for that. In a stadium that holds 60,000, I can only imagine what it was like to see less than 2,000. But when Chicharito, Javier Hernandez, was in town for that goalless draw with LA, they drew 40,000,
32,000, I believe, which is it was the 4th largest attended match in Fire history. It really was the other end of the spectrum from last night. Despite Soldier Field being a pretty huge cavernous NFL stadium, the whole bottom section, on both sides was full. They had the east side of the stands open, and there was, a lot of people in there. But when I went down to talk to my friends, so basically I was writing a feature on Chicharito, and there was a lot of people there to see him, right? But it seemed like the match drew a lot of casual Fire fans back out. And I walked down to see my friends at halftime, and the concession stand lines were unlike anything I've ever seen them for a Fire game. It looked like a Bears game at halftime. And I know, soccer, with only one break, like everyone bolts the concession stands at halftime, right? But I'm telling you, I missed like half. Well, I was seeing it from there, from the line, but like I wasn't back up into the press box until about the 63rd minute. And in that time, Chicharito had a goal called back for offsides, and Douglas Costa had a goal back, also called back for offsides. But you mentioned the Fire's style of play this year. They really are struggling to score goals. Even last night against a team that they should have had no problems against, they were generating plenty of chances, and they just are not getting the final ball that they need. They had both their goals on PKs last night. And against LA, it was pretty evident too. You know, LA probably had a little bit better of the chances in that game. But, you know, Chicago is just not really getting what they need from their wings in their midfield right now. And, you know, I think that Shaqiri being out now for a little bit hurts them. And they're a team that's, you know, they do have a lot of new faces. I think towards the top of the team and in the starting 11, this is a better Fire team than in recent years. Feel pretty good about the defense, especially with Gaga Slonina back in the net. But yeah, you know, Ezra Hendrickson, he was talking about it on Saturday. It's easier to become a team that's hard to beat. And you got to start by building out of the back, and they are doing that. But the next step is really getting some better service to their forwards. In the LA game, really, they only had one great chance, and it was when Kasper Shabelko had a 3-on-0 breakaway against the goalkeeper, and he tried to round him, and it was a terrible attempt to round him, and easy work for LA's keeper. So Fire definitely are still a work in progress.
How long is Shaqiri out for? What's he done to himself this time?
Yeah, well, Shaqiri's been out since, I think he's been out for 2 weeks now. It's a calf injury. So, and he's basically considered day-to-day. So they didn't rule him out before the LA game. And, you know, I even thought that maybe he'd be on the bench last night, but I don't believe he was. So, you know, they don't want to rush him back. He did do the media availability last week along with Chicharito, and kind of was giving the impression that he might be back.
Right.
You could almost see in his face that he didn't have the enthusiasm when he was answering questions. It kind of looked like a guy who knew he wasn't going to be playing.
Right. Gotcha.
Well, perfect segue there, because I was on that media availability with you, and I do remember Shaqiri being kind of like, yeah, he was a little bit reserved and not as energetic as Chicharito. And oh my God, I'm so glad they transcribed that for us, because my piece ended up being like 1,700 words. So that probably would have been, the game would have started before I would have finished transcribing that. But all of it was golden. Well, I mean, all of those two answers was pretty golden. I mean, what did you think of Chicharito telling us about the meaning of life?
Well, honestly, like I wasn't having the best day, and he kind of brightens my day, you know. You think you're going to talk to a guy like Chicharito and he's going to brush you off, or he's going to, you know, kind of mail it in like Sheridan did. But that wasn't the case at all. You know, he's a guy that's full of life. And for someone who's larger than life, he doesn't carry himself like he's better than you. And, you know, he kind of took every question and made it, you know, bigger than football and about the grand scheme of things. But you can tell that he's kind of a more mature player than he was, and a more mature person than he was before he came over from Europe. And, you know, I think that also his kind of his maturity has shown from, you know, I don't know if you remember 2019, he kind of had a falling out with Tata Martino in the Mexican national team, and he hasn't been back in the fold since then. Of course, he was asked about that in Spanish after he answered the questions in English, and, you know, his response was, "I'm ready to go, you know, if the national team will call me up." And this came after, you know, a couple of days before that, Martino had kind of, I don't want to say disparaged Chicharito, but he had kind of responded to questions in a way where he was asked, why haven't you called Chicharito back in? He's been playing really well in MLS. And his answer was, he hasn't been called back in because the manager hasn't called him back in 3 years. And, you know, I think a younger Chicharito, that would have really bothered him. And I think he realizes at this point he's older, but he's playing some great ball right now. playing with confidence. The Fire did a good job against him, but he still almost managed to win the game for LA. And yet he's not even thinking about it like this. You know, he's just taking every day, one day at a time, trying to make the most of it. And after the game, you could tell he kind of followed through with what he had said to us in the week, you know, talking about wherever he's at, whether it's LA at a training session, in Chicago, playing in China on tour or something like that. You know, he always appreciates the people who take the time away from their jobs, who make a lot less money than him and are inspired by him, and he wants to make time for them. So there was a group of kids behind one of the goals, and they had a sign that said, "Chicha, can I have your jersey?" And he went right up after the game and gave his jersey to those kids. And, you know, that might have been the best moment of somebody's life right there. And then talking to fans before the game, you know, it was really just impressive to see the cultural impact that this man has made, especially in the Mexican community in Chicago, where we have a huge Mexican community of expats and immigrants. And, you know, I chanced upon a family. The last people I interviewed was a family of 5, and they were all decked out in LA Chicharito jerseys. And, you know, I interviewed them, and his name was Juan. He said that it was his first time ever seeing Chicharito in person. And he recalled watching Chicharito's dad, play for Morelia back in Mexico back in the day. And this is, you know, years ago, but Chicharito's father was a well-regarded player as well. And you could just see, like, in his eyes, you know, he was talking to me in Spanish, and his daughter was helping me translate because my Spanish is so. But it really meant a lot to him. And then, you know, I talked to another Fire fan, Reina Gonzalez, who was like feeling really, you know, her heart was being pulled in both directions because she's a Chivas de Guadalajara fan, where Chicharito kind of burst onto the scene, you know, more than 10 years ago. And she's a longtime Fire fan, and she's a Chicagoan. And so she said that, you know, she was staying loyal to the Fire for that day, but she was definitely going to cheer if Chicharito scored. And of course he did. But I just think that, you know, between what he said and how he plays, he's a guy who's really learned that he has to walk the walk after he talks the talk. And I think he did that.
Yeah, I always get back to Taylor Twellman. I think this was when the Fire were being sold, or when they were moving back into Soldier Field. And he famously said, "You go out, you sign Chicharito, you sign Robert Lewandowski tomorrow, you fill up that stadium." It's like, well, okay, sure, that easy. I'm gonna go buy Google and Twitter tomorrow. But you know, he really is. Chicago's home soccer team is actually Mexico, because I covered the 2019 Gold Cup final, and it was maybe 5% USA fans, and it was packed, and I've never seen a soccer atmosphere like that. So it would make sense that the all-time leading scorer in Mexico history would create a lot of atmosphere like that, would draw.
Yes, completely agree, Paul. Mexico is really the number one team here. And I think that was also evidenced, you know, sales for that Ecuador friendly, which I think is in May or June. Those tickets are way more expensive than any Fire tickets I've seen. And there's not many seats left for that game. I have no doubt that they are going to pack Soldier Field out, and it's going to be a really tough atmosphere for Ecuador to play in.
Yeah, so with that in mind, I wanted to shift gears to the national side. What are your thoughts on like USA's draw and how they may do in Qatar?
Yeah, I actually like the draw for the U.S. You know, I thought it could have been a lot worse, obviously. You get England from pot 1, and I know England's pretty good. You know, I as an American, I think most Americans relish that matchup, right? Because we're little brother to England historically in world soccer, and they think we're a joke. And clearly we're not a joke. We're not quite England, far from it. But you know, I do look at that and say, you know, I think the U.S. has a chance, definitely a good chance to get out of the group, and to start it off against England. If that had been on Thanksgiving, that's the only way that game could have been any crazier. I do kind of shudder at the thought of them trying to contain Phil Foden. I think that they'll have their hands full with him and Harry Kane, and you know, I think that England's a great team. But I do like the draw for the U.S. It could have been a lot worse. What do you guys think?
I think the football versus soccer match kicking things off probably plays in the USMNT to their benefit. Honestly, I don't see you having too many troubles. I don't know if you've listened to the pod before, if Paul's told you, but I'm pretty big on this current generation of Team USA stars. They're probably not going to set the world on fire in Qatar in 2022. I've said this before also. I think 2026, the Mexico, Canada, USA World Cup. I think if you can keep this batch of stars together, fit and firing, and get a bit more chemistry happening from playing together more often, I think you guys could. The sky's the limit in 2026. As far as 2022 goes, though, I think you'll make the first knockout round without a doubt. Anything further than that might be pushing it a little bit.
Paul, what you thinking about it?
I think getting to the knockout round would be a major win for the USA this time around. I think it's very possible. I don't think they're going to get to the quarterfinals or the round, but I think they could really do some damage. And then I agree with what Stewie said about 2026 being the year in which it gets really special. I think more pressures on England. They have that like Cubs or Cleveland Indians like drought, and now the weight of that has just gotten heavier given what happened this past summer at the Euro. So they have a golden generation as well. I mean, they've got some youngsters. It'll be kind of interesting to see. Hopefully both of them come out of the group in advance. So that'd be really cool. And I'm definitely excited for that game. It's by far circle the date kind of thing. I also wanted to get your thoughts on Pulisic, how he's been doing both for club and country, Gavin.
I'm as big of a Pulisic guy as anybody, right? And I think that he's come through, some tough injuries. It's good to see him, kind of rediscovering that form, coming off the bench as Chelsea, tried to get over the hump that is Real Madrid. I think a lot of people think that the national team's fate kind of goes and falls with Pulisic. But I think, as Stewie said, this golden generation of U.S. talent has kind of put us in a place where, we have other guys. But Pulisic is the truly world-class player and truly the guy who can set the tone. I think he's a good leader. And I think he's matured through being in the fire with Chelsea. There's a ton of pressure playing for them. And I think he's lived up to that billing. I know that Chelsea fans probably are a little less fond of him than we are. I think that the biggest thing for him and for a lot of players always leading into the World Cup is just staying healthy. And I think that he's had, enough games and enough run where he's confident, he's feeling good. So as long as he has a healthy summer, I don't think he's too worried about his club future as much. I really do think that he's just kind of present right now. And he'll be focused on the USMNT and really coming through for them. I know that there's kind of rumors taking off about maybe him getting sold to another club or something like that. I think he's got like 2 more years on his contract still, but that's kind of around the time when rumors can start to fly. So I think it will be interesting to see if anything does change for that with him, or if Chelsea hangs on to him. But Christian, at this point in his career, I think that he's getting really good at compartmentalizing. And I actually think that's always been something that, he's really had to do and become elite at to succeed when you're a player who carries a nation's hope on his shoulders like he does.
As you touched on with the USMNT and the stars, I think, Christian Pulisic is definitely the front and center guy. I think Weston McKennie is just as important. You've got Gio Reyna too, is just a superstar. I don't know what you're doing with the number 9 position there. I've seen so many different players in there, but where's the guy from Young Boys? Why isn't he getting a start? Jordan Peacock, is that his name? I want him to get a start. I want to see how he goes. He's had an incredible season in Switzerland, and it boggles the mind that he hasn't had I don't think he's had a start for the USA yet, has he?
I don't know if he's had a start for the US. He's definitely had call-ups though, right?
Yeah, he's played minutes. He had a shocker of a miss against Mexico in the last round of fixtures, but I don't think he's had a start. And the other thing, Pulisic, and focusing on the World Cup. I think a lot of players, when you hit a World Cup year, the focus is on the national team and staying fit. And I think the most important thing for Pulisic is he stays in and around, that first 11 or, 12, 13, 14 is consistently coming off the bench if he's not starting.
You brought up Reyna, and that made me remember that he just went off with a nasty injury. We were talking about Pulisic's health and how crucial that is. I think that, man, Gio was crying as he went off the field for Dortmund last week, and it looks like he got some sort of muscle tear. And I don't think it's actually been specified what the injury is, but Dortmund said he won't be back this season. So I think for the U.S., I certainly agree that Weston McKennie is almost equally as important as Pulisic, and Reyna is absolutely another one of these budding stars who can really help this team get to the next level. And possibly, I would say as a U.S. fan, maybe I have higher expectations than most. I say getting out of the group is the expectation for the U.S. And then I'd like to see them push and try and break into the quarters. I wouldn't set that as the expectation. But I think that Reyna's a player who can help you beat that next level of team and really compete once you get to the knockout stages. So it will be interesting to see how serious this injury is. It's not good if Dortmund's already ruling him out. I know it is the end of the season, but just to see his reaction when it happened was tough.
So he's only been back for a month or so from his last injury, right? The hamstring or something that he was out for quite some time.
Yep, and this is another muscle injury in his leg too. So not sure if it's the same leg as his hamstring that he recently injured, but it's definitely a concern. So I think that, Greg Berhalter has got to be a little nervous to see some of this stuff happening. And one last thing I wanted to note as well in the USMNT talk and the fire talk is that Poland is going after Gabriel Slonina really hard right now. I should have mentioned this earlier, but the Poland national team's coach was actually at the game last night. One of the 2,000 people in the empty Soldier Field recruiting Gaga. Who at 17 years old, with the U.S. goalie question being a serious one right now as well, it'll be another interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, 100%. That's it's interesting that you brought up about that Polish goalkeeper. We spoke about him on a couple of weeks ago, and how he had that dual nationality, and particularly with Zach Steffen's performance in the FA Cup semi-final. I mean, you'd be hoping that Berhalter would be going hard trying to sway him to show out for the USMNT rather than Poland. And just a bit of a personal aside, I think he has more opportunity at success and winning trophies at a national team level with the United States than he would with Poland. So that'd be my go-to if I was trying to sell the USMNT to him.
Yeah, Stu, I think that's a good sell. I think that Gaga, he's going to be a player who I think projects out to be, a Guillermo Ochoa type, like a guy who could be one of the faces of this program for years to come. And at 17 years old, he really conducts himself like a guy who's more like a Pulisic, who's a little older and who's been there. And yet he's playing for, an MLS team that hasn't done anything in years. And that said, though, he's getting the starts. He's becoming a fan favorite, and he's got more clean sheets, or he's either got more clean sheets or he's tied for the MLS lead in clean sheets. He's got almost a 90% save rate, and the Fire defense has done a pretty good job of protecting him. But I think that certainly if I'm Greg, I am hard pitching him on you can help us break through and become, the team in CONCACAF, become truly a respected country on the world stage and fight for trophies, because Poland, while a pretty good program, things are just harder for them playing in UEFA.
And, with a home World Cup or, kind of a home World Cup coming up in 2026, you wouldn't think that'd be too hard of a sell. Listen, Gavin, I could sit here all day and talk soccer with you, football, whatever we're going to call it, whatever part of the world you're listening from. It's fantastic to have you on here. You can catch Gavin at the Chicago Tribune, Associated Press. Am I missing anything?
And the Champagne News Gazette as well.
And the Champagne News Gazette. You can also hit him up at It's All Good. Fantastic handle, Gavin. Don't change it, mate. On Twitter and Instagram. Thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Stewie. Take care.
You too, mate.
Sadio Mane. It's a lovely ball. Now then, it's Salah. And he's got Luis Diaz in the middle. Goal! Classic. The Liverpool counter.
All right. We begin on Saturday with the early kickoff, and it is a matchup of two traditional Big Six clubs that have really fallen on some hard times. One we already covered in detail. Well, actually, we covered both of them already in some detail. Arsenal hosts United. Who you got in the They Used to Be Great Cup?
I love it. So if it was a cup match, I'd have a go on the penalties. I don't see a winner here. Manchester United will need a response after their insipid display against Liverpool. Arsenal had a big match against Chelsea in the midweek, and that might put just bring their energy levels down a little bit. So I've got a 1-1 draw in that one.
Score draw. I like it. That seems fitting. So there in that score draw, there would be a winner, and that would be Tottenham Hotspur for the 4th place spot. Moving on to Leicester City and Aston Villa.
This game, I've been pretty reductive with my prediction here. Leicester played midweek against Everton. Aston Villa did not. Everybody knows who listens to the pod that I'm not a huge fan of Leicester at the moment. So I've got Aston Villa winning 2-1 with probably my Steven Gerrard bias showing through a little bit there.
Yeah, your Steven Gerrard bias shows all the time, actually. Up next is Man City hosting Watford. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this that like crazy fixture where it's like the most lopsided thing?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the stats like are insane on this one.
Yep, the stats are insane on this one, and Manchester City they'll just keep the train going. They're dangerous. I think we're going to have a bit of a grandstand finish in the Premier League again, like we had a couple of years ago when City pipped Liverpool by 1 point. I just don't see how either side could drop a point. And with that in mind, I've gone for City to beat Watford 3-0.
I would back you up on that. I do think I don't think either team is going to drop a point from here on out.
Yeah, which is going to be heartbreaking as a Liverpool fan, but just generally as a football fan, it's going to be tremendous to watch.
Absolutely. So up next, we've got Norwich City and Newcastle.
So Norwich are nowhere. Norwich are already playing in the Championship, as far as I'm concerned. Newcastle on a great run of form. Newcastle are going to be a smoky next year. Yeah, but that's for a future podcast. Newcastle to beat Norwich 2-0 at Carrow Road.
And then next we've got a London derby between Brentford and Tottenham.
So I don't have the stats in front of me, Paul, but Brentford have a tremendous record in London derbies this season. And with that in mind, and the fact that I'm a believer, I'm going to go with them getting a shock victory over Tottenham at the Brentford Community Stadium, which means no winners in the race for the top 4 this week.
Yeah, I guess it kind of comes down to no one really wants it. I mean, there's such a drop off between Liverpool and City and the rest of the league. And everyone says that, everyone talks about it, but the drop off between Chelsea and the rest of the league is pretty big too.
Mm-hmm.
Which, speak of the devil, the next London derby we have, and that starts the Sunday slate. That is Chelsea and West Ham. Who you got in that one?
I'm actually going for West Ham to win this one. Chelsea showed a bit of a wobble. West Ham, I like them. I like their fight. They've got one of the smaller first team squads in the entire league, and they've been smashed with injury. And They generally play the same 9 or 10 players every week with just a couple of positions are interchangeable. And, I just got a feeling. I think West Ham are going to beat Chelsea here. And maybe with the way the other results have gone, if they go the way I've predicted them, just insert themselves back into that top 4 race.
Yeah, that's good for the Hammers. It would be great to see them finally do something, get some new blood. I don't think, when all is said and done, I don't think we're going to have a new team in the top 4. We have had Leicester recently, obviously, but Leicester went down to the final day and blew it twice. I think it's going to be like, when I say new blood, I just mean a non-traditional Big Six. I think it's going to be all Big Six in the top 4, even though Leicester could have done it. Maybe West Ham will do it some year, but not this one. Next, we have the Mid-Table Cup. This is 2 teams that are always about finishing somewhere in the table at a place that has a 1 in front of it. In Brighton hosting Southampton.
So I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. 1-1 score draw here, mate.
Works for me. I had very little to say about it anyway. Which then takes us to another match in which I'm gonna switch it up here. We're gonna do one more match that neither of us have much to talk about. We have less to say. It's Monday Night Football, and then we'll close with a slightly bigger match. Crystal Palace hosting Leeds.
Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't have a lot to say here. I like what Jesse Marsh is doing at Leeds. 2-1.
I agree. Good on Jesse Marsh to calling back to Gavin's segment about how the Brits think we're a joke or something. He's he's showing us that we're not.
100%.
So with that in mind, some blood feud here, some real acrimony. We've got the Merseyside Derby, Anfield edition. Take it away.
So this is huge. Everton are trash. Everybody knows. Liverpool are great. Everybody knows. But with these derbies, with the exception of some recent derbies, I suppose, form kind of goes out the window, particularly in the Liverpool-Everton game. I'm not going to pick Everton to win. I'm picking a Liverpool win, but it's going to be very, very hard fought victory in stark contrast to the Manchester United game. And I'm going for Liverpool to just sneak over the line 1-0 with maybe an Alisson Becker header from a set piece in the 95th minute.
Ooh, love it. Scintillating.
Geez, I better put some money on that. Imagine if that happens. That'd have to be paying 1,000 to run.
Feet and on, and Salah's in, and Mo Salah for Liverpool. The goal drought is over now. Mohamed Salah is back in business.
So tell us what you got going on this week. What you're up to.
So once I'm becoming a regular on Goals on Film, we're doing 42 Jackie Robinson movie. Just about the first player of color in the major league. I was surprised. I thought it was a bit of an indie movie. It's actually got Harrison Ford and Chadwick Boseman in it, so it's a bit of a big deal. Have you seen that one, Paul?
Indie movie? Yeah, it's on that. It's art house cinema. It's only limited. What are you talking about? Why did you think it was an indie movie?
Because I love sports movies, and I just thought, 42, Jackie Robinson, interesting. I've never heard of this movie before, and I guess it's just a bit of my own hubris. I was like, well, if I haven't heard of it, it must be an independent movie. But I was very, very wrong. So yeah. No,
it's good. I'm a big believer that the best sports books and the best sports movies are baseball. I'm not saying baseball, and I know it's weird because I would not put baseball as near my favorite sport, and I wouldn't say it's the most exciting to watch, but I think the best books and the best movies are baseball.
Yeah, it 100% translates the best onto the screen. Some of my favorite sports movies are baseball movies. All right. Well, unless you've got anything else for us, Paul.
Just be sure to check out all the previews on the sportsbank.net. If you haven't read my series on Manchester United, keep them or cut them, I did it all by position group. Check that out. Gold card auction. I've been doing more freelance on the trading card industry for them. So check out my pieces over there as well.
That's fantastic. We're both a couple of busy guys at the moment. That is it for another week of After Extra Time. As per usual, follow us at our Twitter account at AfterET_podcast. Follow Paul at Paul M. Banks. Follow me at Stewie is sick of it. And follow our guest Gavin at It's All Good on Twitter. Be sure to get all your latest football news at thesportsbank.net. What a website. Show the third member of the pod some love by following at Otis Ginger Tabby on Instagram. If you enjoyed this podcast, please click the subscribe button. And if you really dig it, please take the time to give us the 5-star rating. Please. Anyway, until next week, he's Paul M. Banks. I'm Stuart Kavanagh. And this has been After Extra Time.
Turned a very bad pass into an average. Oh, here's Salah. Liverpool looking for another. Ding! Goal! Easy as you like. Liverpool are taking Manchester United to the cleaners now. 30 goals now this season for Mohamed Salah.